Përshëndetje dhe mirë se erdhët to Inside Albania with me, Alice Taylor. This week, I am joined by the creative genius behind the film Alexander, Albania's entries to next year's Oscars, as well as not one but two MEPs to discuss the recent debate in European Parliament on Kosovo and Serbia. I'll also be talking about AI and its place in the world of media and journalism with two of my colleagues, one who's flesh and blood and the other who is not. Let's get started. This week saw the ongoing situation between Kosovo and Serbia debated in the European Parliament. On the initiative of the Greens EFA group, a debate was organised to discuss the 24th September terrorist attack and what should happen next from an EU level. I'm joined in the studio once again by Greens MEP and Rapporteur for Kosovo, Viola von Cramon, to get an overview of what happened in the debate and what happens next. Viola, there was a debate in European Parliament during which you, along with others, made calls for more action from the EU regarding Kosovo and Serbia. You called specifically for the lifting of sanctions against Kosovo and a tougher stance towards Serbia. Can you give our viewers a brief overview of the mood in the session yesterday and any of the other suggestions which were put on the table?
Well, overall, I would say there's quite a big worry about the stability in the Western Balkan, about the security, about the threats coming especially from Serbia, but also the lack of political will to find solutions. And I think it was crystal clear that at that point, the patience with Serbia, with President Vucic, was rather limited. I think it was rather clear that there will be appropriate, I wouldn't call that sanctions, because sanctions means you have a sanction regime, it needs to be approved by the council. This is not the case for Kosovo, and this won't be the case for Serbia. So we speak about measures, we speak about some political financial measures, we speak about limited access maybe to IPA fund, which would definitely harm the government of Serbia. We speak about other measures, but not about sanctions. Neither are there any sanctions for Kosovo at the moment. The mood was rather clear. We want an accession process for both countries, for all the countries of the Western Balkan, but it's a merit-based process. And if one country creates this military and almost a terrorist attack in the neighboring country, it's hard to understand how a country would become a member of the European Union. So imagine that President Vucic is quite, I would say, in control of most of the activities in Serbia. It is hard to imagine that he was not aware of what's going on in terms of buying this military equipment, putting together this group of attackers, and so on and so forth. So it's now in his hands to make sure there's a proper investigation, that there's a proper prosecution, there's a lot of transparency of what actually went how and how could this happen. That is in his hands, and I guess that many people yesterday, but also in the Commission before, in the European External Action Service, made sure that this message is also received the President of Serbia.
Now, last week I interviewed Donika Gavela-Schwartz, and I've heard from other stakeholders that they feel like they've been warning the West and the EU about the risk of this kind of attack for some time, but that the response from the EU has very much been, we don't believe you, and this is what they feel. Are people perhaps waking up to the reality of the situation in Kosovo a bit more now after what happened?
Well, I think we need clarity, and one side who could help to deliver this or to provide us with clarity would be the Serbian side, and so that's why we have asked to give us the facts. So what happened? How could this armed vehicles and heavy military equipment end up in the north of Kosovo? Who is behind that? What kind of organized gangs? What kind of criminal networks are still hosted there in the north of Kosovo? Whether this is really orchestrated by the Serbian state, or as Milan Radojevic said, it was his own responsibility, his sole responsibility. I mean, we have no clarity whatsoever. Still, I would say that Serbia has no interest in a bigger military attack. I don't think Serbia has an interest in in any kind of a war. That is at least what I would see from how people react in Belgrade. But obviously, many things went wrong, and the stability is in danger. There is the risk that one provocation initiated another provocation, and this needs to be prevented. And that is why myself, but also some other colleagues, ask KFOR to increase the troops, to make sure that there is enough resilient, that there is enough robust forces. UK stated this example. I think that was very helpful, immediately sent some additional troops, and I hope that Germany and other member states will follow this example.
Now, another thing I want to know, were there any opposing voices, or rather those that were maybe a bit more pro-Serbian? And if so, who and what were their stances?
Well, interesting enough, I was actually wondering, but I did not hear any so-called defenders of the Serbian voice. I wouldn't call this is the pro or anti or whatsoever voices. I would rather say that everyone is very much alerted on what was happening on the 24th of September. And everyone is very much committed on, we would like to see a solution, and a solution means we need to have the first steps settled before we go back to business as usual. And there is a lot, I think, where the Serbian government, where President Vucic, where the authorities in Belgrade have to help. And that was made crystal clear by everyone. So nobody really spoke in favor and defended the Serbian, I would say, behavior, this day of mourning, the rhetoric towards Kosovo, the yellow press, and all the pressure coming against the ethnic Albanians and so on. Nobody ever, not ever, but nobody defended this in the yesterday's session.
Which brings me on to the next question. What happens now? I mean, do you think there is enough support within the EU institutions to take concrete action and to crack down on Serbia?
Well, for sure, there is a request from the Commission and from the EU institution to give us, as I said before, the clarity to have a proper prosecution now against those people who are behind the attacks. And if the cooperation of the government of Serbia, the authorities, the judiciary, if this cooperation is sufficient, there might be a chance that there will be no measures. But for sure, the measures are drafted now. The measures can be politically, the measures can be financially, the measures can be in terms of the negotiations, the accession negotiations, and so on. So we have a lot of tools in our hands, and we know that is definitely not in the interest of President Vucic, while he has actually already announced elections in December, to see that things slip out of his hands. Therefore, we do hope that we see, I would say, a constructive attitude and also a step-by-step approach. Regarding Kosovo, of course, it is in our interest that at some point we will come back to a constructive way of the dialogue, but only, as I said, after Serbia has done the homework on what happened on the 24th of September. There's no question about that. But nevertheless, we would like to see, before we actually start the pre-election campaign of the European Parliament and on the US election, to get things done and to finalize, especially also the questions about the Ohrid agreement, the association of the Serb municipalities, and so on. And what I understand is that many diplomatic forces are now putting together another proposal how we're going to proceed. What details might entail this, I can't tell you at the moment.
Could we be seeing a more balanced approach with that proposal?
Well, it depends what you call balance. But, well, I mean, Serbia has definitely ruined everything they could ruin. So for the moment, I don't see that there is anyone waiting for, I mean, everyone is waiting for Serbia to deliver. And the next thing is then that after we have seen the handling of the attacks in hopefully a reasonable way, then I guess we need to see the right step towards the dialogue. Yes, and hopefully this will be, I mean, called a balance, or on the other hand, at least you need to see the political will. And I do hope that the European Union would also firstly ask from President Vucic to sign the agreement, to make sure he's not just talking about that, but he also delivers with his signature. Otherwise, it will be hard to believe here for us in the European Parliament, in the European institution, but also in Kosovo, that he has a genuine interest to get something out of the dialogue. In parallel, and this is important to say, we also need the commitment for the association of the Serb municipalities. There's no question about that. So yes, the signature means business. And on the other hand, what was signed from the Kosovo side in 2013 and 2015 needs then to be finalized as well.
Now, in my interview with Gavala Schwartz last week, she also told me that following the attack in the north and alleged plans to annex it completely from Kosovo, this brings a new context to Serbia's demands for the Association of Serbian Municipalities, also echoed by the EU. Do you think that the creation, the structure and the function of this association should be looked at differently in this new context?
I have not heard these voices that this is interrelated. So I have no indication that there was a bigger annexation planned. As I said, let's look into the fact for the next days and weeks to come. Let's make sure that we get from ULEX, from the services, from the intelligence, from the different partners, the information they have on hand, and put this together and then decide. But so far, I would be very cautious with any immediate, I would say, assumptions.
Viola, thank you very much for your time.